Hi, it's me, Mark Orwell, at it again. I know a little bit of me goes a long way. I totally get it. So, those of you who embrace that point of view will want to stick around because you're going to see someone commit reputational suicide before your very eyes. Unleash the hounds. This time, Orwell has gone too far.
Let the swing begin. Marco Wall is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging. The party don't stop.
As we begin, I'd like to point out that I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've hated Donald Trump since approximately 1987. The thought of being in the same room with the man makes my skin erupt into pus-filled boils. And yet, Donald Trump's proposal to build a victory arch across the Potomac from the Lincoln Memorial is not the worst idea he's ever had. And yes, I realize that sets a pretty low bar. The proposed location is in the middle of a traffic roundabout on Columbia Island at the western foot of the Arlington Memorial Bridge and adjacent to Arlington National Cemetery. Although that would place Independence Arch, the propounded honorific, on the Virginia side of the river, Columbia Island is technically within the District of Columbia. Trump would find it easier to construct his arch in the capital, over which he has a good deal of direct control, than in Blue Virginia, which is subject to his threats more than his dictates. Trump hasn't said what inspired his itch for an arch. Might it have been a twilight stroll through Washington Arch in his native New York? Perhaps it was a reconnaissance of Rome's Arch of Constantine while investigating the architectural wonders of Urbs Aeterna on a walk from the Colosseum to a plate of bucatini au amatriciana at Osteria Cerco at the foot of the Palatine Hill. Unlikely. Or it might have been a screenshot of the Arc de Triomphe used as laptop wallpaper by a White House staffer. In fact, the concept seems to have stemmed from an article by a mild-mannered architecture critic writing in an obscure policy journal. Consider the world capitals that have a triumphal arch. Paris, of course, New Delhi, Bucharest, Mexico City, Brussels, Lisbon, London, and many more. Even Pyongyang has one. Pyongyang? Yet the concept of President Trump on his own concocting a halfway decent idea is mind-boggling. It's likely that Trump was influenced by an essay by Catesby Lee, a public art and architecture writer in Washington. It's unknown who might have read the opinion piece to Trump. The thought of Trump reading an entire magazine article on his own stretches credulity. Lee pitched the idea of a triumphal arch in an erudite and informative article in City Journal, what they call the nation's premier urban policy magazine, published by the Manhattan Institute, a conservative think tank, in December 2024. Quote, the L'Enfant plan for the layout of Washington, D.C. generated many urban nodes calling for the erection of monuments, Lee wrote. He continued, yet Washington is the only major Western capital that lacks a triumphal arch. The semi-quincentennial celebration provides an excellent opportunity to build one. Okay. You don't have to love Trump to want a memorial that celebrates America's 250th anniversary. In fact, there may be no better time for such a celebration than when democracy is under such dire threat. But there's a problem. We don't have enough time to build a fully constructed arch by July 4th, 2026. We can't be certain where the first celebratory arch was made, But there's no doubt that they were perfected in ancient Rome. The Arch of Titus near the Forum, and arguably one of the three most distinguished and still standing such arches in that city, was erected in 81 AD, following that emperor's death. His brother and future emperor Domitian, who commissioned the monument, ensured that the facade was carved with heroic examples of Titus's contributions to humanity, like persecuting Jews in the Holy Land and sacking Jerusalem. The triumphal arch of Septimius Severus from 203 AD was a blowout commemoration of his victories in the Parthian campaign. You remember the Parthians? See page 374 in your history textbook, Rome and the Rise of Western Civilization. The late-to-the-party Arch of Constantine from 312 AD rose up somewhat hastily, say the editors at Britannica.com, to celebrate a bloody victory over former Emperor Maxentius. Because of the hurried construction, the builders liberated friezes and carved figures from existing monuments that no one seemed to be using at the moment. At one point in its heyday, Rome boasted some 34 such triumphal arches, although only the three that I mentioned remain standing. Virtually all of them, to some extent, were commemorations of bloodshed, conquest, domination, and fear. Perhaps we needn't ask why Trump so desperately wants his own arch on the edge of the Virginia suburbs. Someone break out the champagne, or maybe the Prosecco. Hey, knock it off down there. There's no chance that l'Arc de Triomphe planned to be 250 feet tall, understandably because of the 250th anniversary, and not accidentally 86 feet taller than Paris's Arc de Triomphe, can be completed by July 4th. Approval processes, political roadblocks, and the realities of construction make a 2026 completion nearly impossible, but the project appears to be trudging inexorably forward nonetheless. A proposal for a temporary arch to be built in time for the celebration appears doomed. The Commission of Fine Arts signed off on the project at the end of May, and yes, the members were all appointed by the president. The White House says no congressional approval is needed for the construction because Columbia Island is owned by the Department of the Interior. And yes, Trump appointed the Secretary of the Interior. It was a stacked deck, but one should always play to one's strengths. The gilt Lady Liberty proposed for the top of the arch, the golden-winged eagles at her side. The next president can order them removed, even as he or she is painting over the gilded gobbledygooks that the chief executive has added to the walls and hearth of the Oval Office. Lee's original suggestion was for a 60-foot-tall arch. Of Trump's current plan, Lee told the New York Times, "It's way too big for that site." At least one can take heart in the fact that Lee did not have a fondness for the Colossus at Rhodes when he published his article. Hey, I'm Mark Orwell, at it again. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time.